So I don't want to do Conor McGregor invented shoulder strikes, but he did something cool with it, and he had a lot of success with it in a high-level fight, albeit a layup against a guy who hated southpaws and early pressure. Obviously, here he is, breaking Donald Cerrone's nose with it. Donald Cerrone at welterweight, very far outshot. Donald Cerrone at welterweight. His career reinvention was that he would occasionally duck his head and try and take people down with like a standing running shot, which he tries as soon as he slips that left hand there, and he gets caught in what is called a head post with the whizzer. So McGregor's got a bicep tie on that side. He's got this overhook here, which he's often pushing into the hip crease this way, and he's got his head posted here, which is really important because it lets you bring your body back like that. It lets you keep some separation between your chest and the opponent's chest, and it gives you space so that when you throw your shoulder, it goes pop. So if we look at every single one of these, they're not properly chest to chest. He posts his head first. Nice big gap between shoulder and face. 1. Posts his head again. 2. That one is the one that busts his nose open. And 3. And if you've been watching my shit for a while, you know this head post isn't even new for Donald Cerrone. Leon Edwards here has the overhook on that side, has looped it through and is holding like a rear naked choke grip on his own arm. And bicep tie on this side, just like McGregor was doing. Gets his head in. Now see, this is it. Cerrone does throw a knee here, but having your body like this while the opponent's forced upright makes the knee a lot less effective. Because rather than going through his body, the strike now runs out of steam. He's on the end of it. Meanwhile, Edwards, by having his body like this, nice staggered stance, got this knee in the back so he can really plow it in. Lovely. And this is that grip we were talking about. Some people call this, some people differentiate between the overhook and the whizzer. I've heard some people say that an overhook is for pulling people up and a whizzer is for keeping their hips away, and this is a whizzer. A lot of people call this a whizzer with a thigh pry. So he's over Cerrone's arm on this side, and his arm's in the hip, pushing back, keeping separation between their hips. But it's all built off this head post position. You use these to get the head in position, and then you lock this nice angle in and start landing your knees. Mario Batista here using the head post to free his hands and land a couple of punches. Nate Diaz did that repeatedly against Conor McGregor. Having the head post like this allows him to set up this elbow. Lovely. This is how Paul Felder knocked out Charles Oliveira when they fought. But Batista very, very good with the head post. Here he is using it against Perrin, Jay Perrin, and he's going to use it to hammer him with some elbows. What'll happen quite a lot is that Perrin will just throw himself out of position like that to get away from them. So to avoid the head post, he'll put his head on that side. This is something we talked about in an article recently in boxing. Eddie Cotton versus Jose Torres. I did an article on the Patreon a couple of weeks ago. But he's trying to hide his head on that side, where he's not getting elbowed to death by this. And that lets Batista line up one of the most aesthetically pleasing shoulder strikes I've ever seen. Gets his whole body turned into it. Only a little bit of distance on that one, though. Gets his shoulder, yeah, only a few inches of distance. He clears there to strike through. But Batista very good at using the shoulder strike as like a lubricant to action in the clinch. So here he's going to punch the body with this arm, and then he's going to loop it over the top and try and pummel through for an underhook. Like that. Perrin's keeping this elbow tight. Couple of shoulders to the face, loses his gum shield, and gives up the underhook. Once more from the top, doesn't have the underhook. Couple of shoulder strike, does have the underhook. But this is all built around that head post stuff. Head post create distance to strike. Here's a really good one. Gunnar Nelson tries to grab an underhook here, and by the time that the head post is in and the thigh pry is there, he ends up holding on to this underhook from like a mile away. And at this point, this underhook is not doing anything. He's not really got much control over Leon Edwards and how he moves and where he moves. He's just sort of shackled to him by refusing to give it up. And he's also getting sort of like mirror-locked there as well. And then the elbow on the break, because it's Leon Edwards. So this is Josh Barnett in one of the great clinch beatdowns in MMA history, beating up Frank Mir. Lots and lots of head posting in this one. You can see Frank trying to push his head from side to side to get free. Lovely Jack Johnson type uppercut across the body. Here you go, head post one way, Frank's going to change direction. Bam, lovely. So when you're getting pushed upright like this is something that's common in all striking sports that allow like good extended clinch fighting, so basically just this is Muay Thai. But if you ratchet this guy up straight, he can suddenly only remove like this way and this way. He can't move forwards and backwards. So they start doing things that don't necessarily benefit them, and you can read and try and punch them. This is so sick, look. This whizzer / thigh pry is going to turn into control on this wrist, and he can chin him on the turn here. Boom, lovely. Look. No hands for Frank to protect himself, can only turn his head away and just hope for the best. Cannot recommend this fight enough, and the one with Roy Nelson. But I want you to watch how Frank's reacting to this head post. He's just trying to swing his head from side to side, and he ends up bringing it really low. So here, he's getting stood up, and I think Josh uses a cross frame with his right arm as well, but then he brings his head down really low. Josh is cranking him up this way, and Frank's going to end up bringing his head down low again. And just feeding. So, head post, elbow. Frank drops his head. Josh sees that. Punches him a couple of times. Really ratchets him up here with the elbow. He's not trying to elbow him. He's lifting his head with the forearm frame. Frank drops his head again. Josh just keeps it down and knees him in the head. And to go to Muay Thai, Jaron Suk, who's the current RWS champion, I wrote an article about him the other day called Clinch Violence on the Patreon, does a lot of this long clinch here. So his arms are over the top here. He doesn't have underhooks in our traditional MMA sense, but he tries to get his head in front of this guy's jaw, and then he locks his hands and straightens them out. I've done this diagram before, but like when you straighten your arms out, you get this sort of scissoring pressure either side of the head, and your head's here, smashing into theirs. So it can work very well. But he's done it to Captain Team like every time they clinch up. So watch what Captain Team does. He starts dipping his head off to the side and ends up in this weird schoolboy headlock. And it happens like a dozen times in this fight. And the ref will break you when you headlock, but you still get a moment where you get a chance before the referee breaks you. So here we are, trying for that head pinch long clinch. Captain Team drops his head, gets kneed in the eye socket, goes down, knockout. Bends himself over, gets caught with a knee. So by keeping people like rigid upright, they end up choosing a side and bending down towards it a lot of the time, even when they know they shouldn't. And this brings us full circle because Donald Cerrone, being held back by the head post and hit with the short shoulders to the nose, ends up ducking his head down and almost getting his head kneed off. I make these videos for fun and they aren't monetized, but if you want to hear me ramble about fights, I just did a 2-hour episode about the upcoming UFC over on the Patreon. Cheers.